Hey, it's Sila Social Studies.
Hey guys, welcome back to Sila Social Studies. Today we're going to be talking about U.S. immigration with the Irish and the Germans. So the United States has had several multiple waves of immigration. The first major wave of European immigration was when the British immigrated in the early 17th century, establishing Jamestown in 1607. In the early 19th century, many European countries were suffering from famine and governmental upheaval. By the middle of the 19th century, between the years of 1840 and 1860, more than one half of the population of Ireland, which was approximately 2.7 million, and a close number, 1.7 million, from Germany, emigrated to the United States. During this second wave of immigration, nearly 400,000 people also arrived from England, totaling about 4.5 million people from those areas. Most Europeans left to escape civil unrest, severe unemployment, or almost inconceivable hardships at home. Because this wave happened during the Industrial Revolution, despite numerous anti-immigrant movements, it affected nearly every city in the United States. Between 1840 and 1860, over 4.5 million immigrants came to the United States, with the majority coming from the northern and western parts of Europe. Many of the emerging factories in the United States were able to absorb many of the immigrants who were able to find work. Immigrants were able to find unskilled factory jobs, build canals, and construct railroads. They became involved in almost every labor-intensive endeavor in the country. Much of the country was built on the backs of immigrants. So what type of factors make people leave their countries? Well, when the people of one country leave to another, there are many different reasons. These reasons are called push factors and pull factors. Push factors are events or situations that push a person from their country of origin. These factors include things like starvation, poverty, and a lack of political freedom. Pull factors are things that will pull you to another country, or what does one country offer that your home country does not? During the second wave of immigration, the pull factors for immigrants was jobs. Other pull factors are an abundance of land or greater freedoms and equality. So let's talk about the Irish immigrants. More than one half of the Irish population lived on farms that produced very little income. The poverty-stricken population depended on a diet of lamb and potatoes. When the Irish potato harvest failed for the third consecutive year in a row in the 1840s, people starved to death. The infamous Irish potato famine killed over 750,000 people. Eventually, over 2.5 million Irish citizens moved to the United States for a better life. They flocked to major cities in the Northeast, to states like Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. They could not afford to buy property. Instead, they settled in cheap, overcrowded tenement apartment buildings. Men took low-paying jobs that required no skill. They dug canals and worked on building railroads, while women worked as domestic servants for wealthy families. Suddenly, the Irish population in the United States was more than Ireland itself. Today, Ireland has half the population it had in the 1840s, and there are still more Irish Americans than there are Irish nationals. Let's cover the German immigrants. Between the years of 1840 and 1860, more than 1.5 million Germans were pushed from Germany and pulled to the United States. Many educated people fled to escape the economic hardship, riots, and rebellion that led to political upheaval and the German Revolution in 1848. There were not many countries that allowed German immigrants at the time, so America was really their only choice. While the Irish moved into major northeastern cities, many Germans had some money saved and were able to move to the Midwest and purchase land to farm in rural areas. Cities that saw the greatest German immigration were New York City, Baltimore, St. Louis, Cincinnati, and Milwaukee. In cities, they were forced to take low-paying jobs such as tailors, seamstresses, bricklayers, servants, clerks, and bankers. With the vast numbers of Irish and German immigrants that came to America, anti-immigration hostilities erupted against them. Some of the hostilities were political. Many European immigrants became Democrats because they would traditionally side with the commoners and immigrants. Some hostilities were religious-based, as all of the German and Irish immigrants were Roman Catholic. The final hostility directed towards Irish and German immigrants was because they took the low-paying factory jobs that Nativists desired. Immigrant groups were willing to work for almost nothing to survive, and signs blazing NINA, N-I-N-A, no Irish need apply, began to flood the country. Ethnic and anti-Catholic rioting spread throughout the northeastern cities. Most Americans in the 1800s were Protestants, and the new wave of immigration brought many Catholic immigrants and turmoil. Religious conflicts erupted in the streets, where a dozen were killed, dozens more were injured, and buildings were burned. Many native-born Americans opposed immigration because of the fear of losing their jobs to immigrants, who would work for lower wages. These Americans were called Nativists. Nativists were Americans who opposed immigration and favored people from their own country. Almost overnight, Nativists were forming political parties to combat the new immigrants, doing things to keep Catholics and immigrants out of public office. In 1849, Nativists founded a political organization named the Know Nothing Party, and at the top of their agenda was to make life increasingly difficult for immigrants to become American citizens and keep them out of the government. Part of the Know Nothing platform was to make it mandatory that immigrants lived in the United States for 21 years before they become citizens. By the 1850s, nativism had spread throughout American politics, with nativist candidates winning elections in 7 states and narrowly being defeated in 5 more. During the years of the second wave of immigration and urbanization, political corruption ran rampant through the cities. Political groups known as political machines were established to strongly influence city, county, or even federal politics. Political machines would use both legal and illegal means to get their candidates elected to public office, and these machines would especially be harsh towards the new immigrants when it came to political elections. Legally, political machines might use tactics like humanitarian aid to gain immigrant votes for their candidate. What would sway a starving immigrant more than offering them food and monetary aid with nothing being expected in return? Except that when you saw the political goon at your ballot box, you were expected to vote in favor of his candidate. Illegally, political machines would stuff ballot boxes with votes for their candidate and bribe immigrant voters for their political support. Political machines would even go as far to bribe vote counters. Political machines treated new immigrants so poorly that violence was used often against them to persuade their votes. While immigrants in opposition to political machines were punished, more often than not, supporters of political machines were rewarded with government jobs. The most notorious political machine was New York City's Tammany Hall, headed by William Marcy Boss Tweed. Boss Tweed was infamous for being a terrible person who stole millions of dollars from New York City, and when finally caught, spent life in prison. Political machines met their demise during the Progressive Era in the United States. So we could see that during this time of our second wave of immigration, lots of Europeans, Irish, Germans, and even some British come to America, and when they come here, they are persuaded to do things like vote for certain people. This is a time of our history in which immigration really leads to the building up of the population of our urban north area. This will have a big effect on the Civil War. Most of these immigrants are moving to the north, especially the northeastern part of the United States. We have to remember that. All of a sudden, within 20 years, roughly 5 million people come and move to the northern part of the United States that the Southerners do not have. Those southern states do not get really any of those new immigrants coming to America. I'll see you next time.